There are three major theories about when Gog Magog will take place. Today, we're going to go through all of them, and we'll show you why none of them actually matches the timing that Ezekiel describes. There is an interesting alternative, which we will present to you as well. The prophecy in Ezekiel is that Gog will come to the land of Israel and have a thought to attack those who our father has regathered to the mountains. If you believe that Israel was regathered in 1948, then for you, Gog Magog can happen any day now. But as we showed in the first two episodes of this series, Israel has not yet been regathered. We know that because the prophets told us what that regathering is going to look like. Micah and Jeremiah said that Israel will be regathered with miracles comparable to the Exodus from Egypt. Ezekiel said that Father will take the tribes of Israel into the wilderness. He will purge them, and he will make it so that the rebels among them do not get to enter into his land. Ezekiel says that the ones who Father does allow to enter into his land are going to remove abominations from it. None of this has happened yet. Just to focus on that last point about abominations, we know that historically, those who arrived in the land in the 1940s did not remove abominations from it. And unfortunately, to this very day, there are abominations in Father's land. Like we talked about before, our position on abominations in the land and on other matters related to the state of Israel is to leave the judgment to Father and his angels, because there are people who are living in the state of Israel today who he is determined to save at the very end of time. Until the very end, we can expect that there will be abominations in his land. And actually, the Bible teaches us that the ultimate abomination in the land is yet to come. The abomination of desolation, prophesied by Daniel and confirmed for us by Yeshua, is going to be standing in the holy place in the land for the final 3.5 years of tribulation. Since the prophecy is that Israel will remove abominations when they inherit the land, for as long as abominations exist in the land, it's a sign to us that Israel is still scattered. And for as long as Israel is scattered, the Bible says that Father's holy name is profaned. After Gog Magog, Father says that he will not let his holy name be profaned anymore. Some think that to profane Father's name means to say bad things about him. But the scriptures give us a clearer picture of what profaning actually means. In Hebrew, the words for profane are chol and halal, and they're used to mean the opposite of holy. You'll see one example of this in Ezekiel 22, verse 26, where Father says, "Her priests have done violence to my law and have profaned, halal, my holy things. They have made no distinction between the holy and the profane, chol." Since holy and profane are opposites, to understand what it means to profane something, it helps to know what it means to make something holy. The Hebrew word for holy is qodesh. In the original Hebrew script, the word qodesh is a picture of Father shining his light on something. The first letter in qodesh is kuf, and this letter is a picture of the sun at the horizon. It's used often in Hebrew words to mean light. The letter dalet is a picture of a tent door, and as a tent door is something that hangs down, the letter dalet is often used in Hebrew words to mean down. The letter shin is a picture of teeth, and as your teeth are in front of your face, shin is used in Hebrew words to mean front. So this word qodesh, holy, is a picture of Father bringing his light down in front of something. Father is light, so he is holy, and he is the source of all holiness. Apart from him, Nothing can be made holy. It requires his light. Israel is called the holy people because he shined his light on them, and he calls them by his holy name. The El in Israel is one of Father's names. Father wanted the holy people Israel to be a nation of priests who would be a source of showing his light and his holiness to all the nations. But Israel profaned the holiness that he gave them by walking in darkness. And since they are called by his name is also profaned because of their sins. This profaning of his name is going to continue for as long as Israel is in transgression. And Israel will be in transgression all the way through the end of tribulation. Daniel says that Antichrist rises when the transgressors have come to their full. And in his 70 weeks prophecy, we learn that the transgression will not be finished until the end of the age, when Yeshua returns. One major theory on the timing of Gog Magog is that it happens before tribulation. But if the sign that Gog Magog is over is that Father's name is no longer profaned, and Father's name is profaned by Israel's transgressions all the way through the end of tribulation, then this theory cannot be true. Another thing that profanes Father's name is the scattering of Israel. We learn this in Ezekiel 36, verse 20, where Father says, "When they came to the nations, wherever they came, they profaned my holy name, in that people said of them, 'These are the people of the Lord,' and yet they had to go out of his land." When Israel once again inherits the promised land, then the profaning of Father's name because of the scattering of Israel is over. We know that this inheritance happens after Gog Magog, since Father says that after the battle, he will leave none of Israel among the nations anymore. We can also place the inheritance at the start of Millennium, since there are many prophets, including Ezekiel, who describe all of Millennium as the time when all of Israel is back in the land. What this means is that Gog Magog takes place before Millennium and not at the end of Millennium, as many people teach. Another reason we know that the end of Millennium theory is not true is that Father says after Gog Magog, he will no longer hide his face from Israel because he has poured out his spirit on them. He doesn't wait until the end of Millennium to do this. He says this about Israel in Millennium: "Your ears shall hear a word behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it,' when you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. Then you will defile your carved idols overlaid with silver and your gold-plated metal images. You will scatter them as unclean things. You will say to them, 'Be gone.'" You'll find that passage in Isaiah 30. And right there, he's showing you a picture of the people who are going to be the ones to get rid of the abominations from the land. Now, in order for Israel to hear him say, "This is the way, walk in it," it means his spirit is speaking to them. So the outpouring of his spirit on Israel comes at the beginning of Millennium. One reason that people believe Gog Magog takes place at the end of Millennium is they very understandably cannot reconcile how it is that Israel could be dwelling in safety the way Ezekiel describes. The scriptures tell us that there will be wars in Israel throughout the end of days. So people read about that and they assume that the only time Israel can dwell in safety is sometime after Yeshua returns. But as we explained in previous episodes, Ezekiel's Israel is not the people living in the state of Israel today. The prophecy is about the Israel who Father gathers in the second Exodus at the end of days. As he was with his people in the first Exodus while he judged Egypt, he will be with us in the second Exodus while he judges the world. We will be dwelling in safety because he is going to be with us, the same way that the angel of the Lord was with Israel in the days of Moses. The end of Millennium theory came about because there is a mention of Gog and Magog in the book of Revelation. So let's take a look at that prophecy and see what it means. Revelation 20, verses 7 through 9 says, "And when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea. And they marched up over the broad plain of the earth and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city, but fire came down from heaven and consumed them." As we discussed before, we believe that Gog is a satanic principality, and the name Gog is a name that is given to Satan in the same way that in other scriptures he is called King of Babylon and King of Tyre. Anyone who is aligned with satanic Gog is Magog, since in Hebrew, if you add the letter mem to the beginning of a word, it simply means from. Let me give you a few examples of this using Hebrew words that you may already know. The Hebrew word for commanding is tseva. From commanding comes a commandment. You add an M to tseva and you get mitzvah, a commandment. The Hebrew word for judging is shafat. From judging comes a judgment. Add an M to shafat and you get mishpat, a judgment. In the same way, from satanic Gog come those from Gog. Add an M to Gog and you get Magog. At the end of Millennium, there will be people who will once again choose to align themselves with Satan, and Father is going to immediately judge them for it, which is what we see happening in Revelation's mention of Gog, Satan, and Magog, those from Satan. One last note about the end of Millennium theory is location. The battle in Revelation, as we just read, is focused on the city of Jerusalem, which in those days is going to be a walled city with 12 gates, whereas Ezekiel describes his battle of Gog Magog as involving people who are living in the mountains without walls or gates. There is one more theory about when Gog Magog will occur that we believe is incorrect, and that is the theory that Gog Magog is the same thing as Armageddon. Time-wise, we think that the two battles are close, but there are a lot of differences in how each battle is described. Number one, the parties involved are different. Armageddon involves all nations, while Gog Magog involves only certain nations. Some claim that the list of nations in Ezekiel is somehow representative of all the nations of the world, but in the account of Ezekiel, Father gives us Sheba and Dedan as two examples of people who are not aligned with the Gog Magog confederacy. And in Hebrew, a people and a nation is the same thing. To be sure that Armageddon involves all nations, Revelation 16 says that demonic spirits go to all kings of the earth to assemble them for Armageddon. Zechariah 14 also speaks of the day when Father gathers all nations to battle, and it says, "Everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem will be required to go to Jerusalem every year to keep Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles." Now, if you think that Gog Magog is the same thing as Armageddon, you would have to believe that only certain people from certain places like Persia and Libya and Turkey are going to be required to come for the feast. But for us, all nations means all nations. So for that reason alone, Gog Magog cannot be Armageddon. But that's not the only difference. There's also a difference in locations. At Armageddon, armies are gathered to Megiddo in the Jezreel Valley. Armies surround Jerusalem, and Yeshua is at the Mount of Olives near Jerusalem. But in Gog Magog, the focus is on the mountains of Israel. As we showed last time, the mountains are a great match for where Father says he's going to regather the lost tribes of Israel at the end of days. On screen is a map of a few places that are mentioned as being the destination for Israel's regathering. It's basically the mountains and high regions surrounding the land that we know of today as the State of Israel. Another point on location is Gog's burial location, which Ezekiel describes as blocking passengers coming from east of the sea. This here is more evidence that Ezekiel was not talking about Armageddon's Jezreel Valley in the west. The description of destruction is also different in Gog Magog and Armageddon. In Gog Magog, Father sends an earthquake in the land of Israel, and fire on the land of Magog and on certain coastlands. But in Armageddon, his judgment is worldwide. It's written that the cities of the whole world fall. There's even a difference in how the fighters die in each battle. In both battles, the fighters turn on each other, but at Gog Magog, Father also kills them with hail, pestilence, fire, and brimstone. Whereas in Armageddon, they're described as dying because their flesh, their eyes, and their tongues consume away while they stand upon their feet. One last difference between Gog Magog and Armageddon is the leader of the armies. Those who think that Gog Magog is Armageddon will often say that Gog is the Antichrist. But the Antichrist kingdom is firmly established in the land for the last 3.5 years. We know this because the land is going to be the location of his abominable statue in the holy place. It's also the location of his false prophet, his priests, and his allies. They are all headquartered in Jerusalem and trampling the holy city for 42 months until the end of the age. A reasonable question is, why would the Antichrist need to invade and conquer Israel again at the end of those 42 months? Our answer is that he doesn't need to. The question now is, if all the major theories on the timing of Gog Magog are wrong, then when does this event actually take place? For the reasons I just described, it cannot be before tribulation, and it has to be before the start of Millennium. That is a very tight window of time. Armageddon fits that window, but like I said, the details don't match. We place Gog Magog here, in the final days and moments of the final 3.5 years. We say Gog Magog is 5 minutes to Armageddon because, in our view, once Gog Magog happens, the age, as we know it, is over. Time is literally up, and we are entering the day of the Lord. One day which shall be known to the Lord, not day nor night, like Zechariah describes. In our view, when Gog has a thought to attack those dwelling in safety, our Savior, Yeshua, is in the clouds, getting ready to save us from Gog's hordes. This future event may be what David was talking about in Psalm 18. Let's go over a few verses so you can see the parallels to Gog Magog. This is Psalm 18, verses 7 through 15. In the first part we're going to look at, there's a great earthquake, just like the book of Ezekiel, and there's also a specific mention of the mountains.
Then the earth shook and trembled. The foundations also of the hills moved and were shaken, because he was wroth.
Next in the psalm is the first of many mentions of what could be the fire and brimstone described in Gog Magog.
There went up a smoke out of his nostrils, and fire out of his mouth devoured. Coals were kindled by it.
The next part of the psalm sounds to us like when Yeshua is in the clouds for his return.
He bowed the heavens also, and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And he rode upon a cherub, and did fly, yea, he did fly upon the wings of the wind.
When Joel described the day of the Lord, he wrote, "The day of the Lord is coming. It is near, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness." The prophet Zephaniah likewise described the day of the Lord as a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness. And in Psalm 18 it says,
He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies.
Next in the psalm, we have more hailstones.
At the brightness that was before him, his thick clouds passed, hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the Highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows and scattered them.
That last verse said that he sent out his arrows and scattered them. But who is them? We think that them may be Gog and his hordes.
And he shot out lightnings and discomfited them. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at thy rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils. He sent from above, he took me.
Notice the word took in that last verse. He took me. Whether or not we are correct about Yeshua returning at Gog Magog, or if it happens another time, we know that he is indeed coming to take us. We will be caught up to him in the air, just the way Paul says. Next in Psalm 18, it says,
He drew me out of many waters.
The word waters is used throughout the scriptures prophetically to mean people. So he draws us out of the peoples when he takes us up.
He delivered me from my strong enemy, and from them which hated me, for they were too strong for me. They prevented me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my stay. He brought me forth also into a large place. He delivered me because he delighted in me.
This song of David is a prophetic psalm of praise, thanking God for coming in the clouds, defeating a mighty enemy, doing it with fire and brimstone, and taking us to rescue us. So when I read this psalm, I'm thinking of Yeshua's return and us being caught up to him so that he can get us out of the way while he pours out his final bowls of wrath on the kingdom of the Antichrist, just like it's written in Revelation. And the sixth part of his wrath, the sixth bowl in Revelation, is going to be to dry the river Euphrates to make way for the armies of Armageddon. There is a possible witness to all of this being the order of events, and we find that in Jeremiah 25. When Father tells Jeremiah to make the nations drink the cup of his wrath at what is clearly the end of the world, the last ones to drink are the kings of the north, which would be Gog and his hordes, then the kingdoms of the world, which would be all nations at Armageddon, and finally the king of Babylon, which is Antichrist and Satan. And we will talk more about that later. Also later, we will walk through the entire end times timeline and show you how all of this fits in. But for now, there's one more very important argument to address. I mentioned before that some people teach Gog is the Antichrist, which is something we disagree with. And they say this because of a somewhat cryptic and mysterious verse in Ezekiel that implies that the battle of Gog Magog isn't just in the book of Ezekiel, but that we should be able to find it other places in the Old Testament. In Ezekiel 38:17, Father says, speaking to Gog, "Are you he of whom I spoke in former days by my servants the prophets of Israel, who in those days prophesied for years that I would bring you against them?" What that verse is telling us plainly is that in ancient times, more than one prophet of Israel spoke about the Gog Magog war. So the question is, where are all the Gog prophecies in the Old Testament? Some say Gog has to be the Antichrist, since other prophets talk about the Antichrist, and no one, they say, besides Ezekiel, talks about Gog. But what I'm about to tell you is not something that I wanted to see, but it is nevertheless right there for everyone to see. Father talks about armies coming from the north to attack the land of Israel, and it's all over the scriptures. It's just that when he talks about it, he doesn't call Israel, Israel. He calls it Babylon. Next time around, we're going to have a talk about mystery, Babylon.